At the height of the Golden Age of Piracy between 1650 and 1730, pirates actually outnumbered legitimate Navy sailors in the Caribbean. Forget the romanticized movie versions. These were ruthless criminals who terrorized shipping lanes across the globe. This wasn't just a coincidence. The perfect storm of valuable colonial cargo, thousands of unemployed sailors after major wars, and minimal naval presence created ideal conditions for piracy to flourish. Pirates weren't just violent. They were tactical. Their black flags with skulls and crossbones weren't decorative, but psychological warfare. Their bases, like Port Royal in Jamaica, were dens of chaos where stolen fortunes disappeared overnight. Despite creating their own democratic systems with voting rights and even crude injury compensation, these weren't noble rebels, but feared criminals who spread terror wherever they sailed. Now let's dive into the blood-soaked tales of the 7 most feared captains who ever raised a black flag. First on our list, Edward Teach, aka Blackbeard. Among the blood-soaked rogues of the Golden Age, none mastered the art of terror quite like Edward Teach. His most infamous trick, setting his own beard on fire during battle. This fearsome captain would weave slow-burning fuses into his massive black beard and light them before attacking a ship. Imagine being a sailor on a merchant vessel already terrified of pirates, and suddenly seeing a massive figure with smoke and flames pouring from his face charging towards you. Many crews surrendered without firing a single shot. His psychological warfare was remarkably effective. But Blackbeard wasn't just about theatrics. His strategic brilliance showed when he blockaded the entire city of Charleston, South Carolina, in 1718. With just 4 ships, he held the busy port hostage for nearly a week, capturing every vessel that tried to enter or leave. His demands weren't even that greedy by pirate standards, just a chest of medicines. The city council quickly gave in, proving that even the most feared pirate in history occasionally prioritized headache relief over gold doubloons. I guess pillaging gives you migraines. His flagship, the Queen Anne's Revenge, struck fear wherever it appeared. Originally a French slave ship named La Concorde, Blackbeard captured and modified it into a floating fortress carrying 40 cannons. Most merchant ships of the era carried fewer than 12. When sailors spotted those 40 gun ports opening, most chose surrender over the alternative. The stories Blackbeard spread about himself were just as calculated as his attacks. He cultivated rumors that he had made a pact with the devil, encouraging whispers that he couldn't be killed by normal men. Some sailors swore they saw him drink rum mixed with gunpowder and set it alight before swallowing. Talk about a spicy cocktail. The fact that people believe these tales shows how masterfully he built his terrifying reputation. His parties must have been absolutely lit, both figuratively and literally. Blackbeard's reign lasted only about 2 years, but he became the template for our modern pirate image. His end came in November 1718 when a lieutenant of the British Royal Navy finally tracked him down in North Carolina. The final battle reached legendary status. When Navy ships approached, Blackbeard's crew unleashed a devastating broadside that killed several sailors immediately. Thinking they'd won, the pirates boarded the Navy vessel, only to discover most of the crew hiding below deck, a trap that had been set. What followed was one of the bloodiest hand-to-hand combats in pirate history. Pistols were fired at point-blank range. As swords swung, Blackbeard's weapon shattered. Just as the pirate was about to strike the killing blow with another weapon, one of the Navy men slashed Blackbeard across his neck. Even with a horrific wound, the pirate fought on. It ultimately took 5 gunshot wounds and 25 sword cuts to bring him down. After his death, they found 5 pistols and numerous knives strapped to his body. The Navy cut off Blackbeard's head and hung it from their ship's bowsprit as proof of the kill. Legend says they threw his body overboard, where it supposedly swam around the ship 3 times before sinking. Even in death, the man was an overachiever. Most people can barely swim when they're alive with all their body parts intact. While Blackbeard made his mark through terror and intimidation, our next pirate took a surprisingly different approach. Bartholomew Roberts captured more than 400 ships during his pirate career. That's not a typo. 400. This Welsh pirate, sometimes called Black Bart, makes other famous sea raiders look like amateurs in comparison. What makes this even more remarkable? Roberts never planned to become a pirate at all. He was forced into piracy when his merchant vessel was captured in 1719. Given the choice between joining the pirates or death, he reluctantly chose piracy, then proceeded to become history's most successful buccaneer. Talk about an unexpected career change. Unlike the wild, hard-drinking image we associate with pirates, Roberts ran an unusually disciplined ship. He created a strict code that banned drinking after 8 o'clock at night. Anyone caught with alcohol after hours faced serious punishment. The man responsible for thousands of stolen cargo loads and countless deaths drew the line at staying up late with a rum bottle. Priorities, right? Roberts also banned gambling on his ships. Fights over cards and dice had torn apart many pirate crews, so he simply outlawed the practice. His ships were floating no fun zones, except for the thrill of attacking merchant vessels and getting fabulously rich, of course. Even more unusual was how Roberts treated his piracy, like a regular job with benefits. His crew signed actual contracts outlining what share of treasure each rank would receive. Injured sailors got compensation based on their wounds. Lost your right arm? That's worth 600 pieces of 8. Your left arm? Only 500. Apparently, lefties were discounted in the pirate insurance market. His crew adhered to regular working hours, too. They'd attack ships during business hours and then retire for the evening like accountants leaving the office. Under Roberts' leadership, piracy became almost corporate, minus the casual Fridays. His success stemmed largely from an uncanny knack for naval strategy. Roberts studied shipping routes and merchant schedules, attacking when vessels were most vulnerable. He'd position his ships at narrow passages where merchant vessels had to pass, creating the 18th century equivalent of a toll booth. Except this toll was everything you owned, and the receipt was staying alive. Roberts also preferred speed over firepower. While Blackbeard relied on intimidation and heavy cannon, Roberts focused on swift ships that could outrun naval vessels and quickly overtake merchant targets. After 3 remarkably successful years of piracy, Roberts met his end in 1722 during a battle with a British warship. Unlike Blackbeard's dramatic last stand, Roberts died instantly when grape shot tore through his throat. As per his wishes, his crew threw his body overboard rather than let it be captured. While Roberts treated piracy like a business, our next infamous sea rovers brought an entirely different perspective. Anne Bonny and Mary Red shattered the myth that piracy was exclusively a man's profession. While women weren't actually rare on pirate ships, many disguised themselves to escape restrictive societies. These two became legendary for their ferocity and skill in battle. Their paths to piracy couldn't have been more different. Bonny was born into wealth in Ireland, but ran away to the Caribbean with a small-time pirate. Bored with her husband's lack of ambition, she soon joined the crew of a more successful pirate captain and never looked back. Marriage counselors weren't exactly common in the 1700s, but hers would have had a field day with that relationship dynamic. Reed had disguised herself as a boy since childhood, first to satisfy her grandmother who preferred grandsons, then to join the British military. She maintained the disguise for years, even falling in love with and marrying a male soldier. Talk about commitment to a disguise. Most people can barely maintain a fake accent through a single conversation. When her husband died, she returned to presenting as a man and eventually joined a merchant ship that was captured by pirates. By a twist of fate, both women independently joined the same pirate crew without knowing another woman was aboard. Each believed herself to be the only female among the buccaneers until they accidentally discovered each other's secret. Rather than exposing one another, they formed a powerful alliance and friendship. The two women didn't just serve on the ship, they were among the most feared fighters in the crew. They dressed as men during attacks, but didn't bother hiding their gender during everyday ship life. The male pirates accepted them as equals, partly due to their fighting skills and partly because arguing with someone who can skewer you with a cutlass rarely ends well. A fellow crew member once described them as fighting like hellcats, wielding pistols, swords, and axes with deadly efficiency. They had a reputation for being more bloodthirsty than their male counterparts, perhaps because they had to constantly prove themselves worthy of their position. Their most famous moment came during their final battle in 1720. When their ship was surprised by a British warship, most of the male crew members hid below deck, too drunk to fight. Eyewitness accounts claim Bonny and Red were among the few who stood their ground, firing pistols and swinging swords at the boarding naval officers. As the naval forces overwhelmed them, Bonny allegedly shouted down to the hiding crew, including their captain, "If you'd fought like a man, you wouldn't have to die like a dog." Not exactly what you'd want on your pirate performance review. Both women escaped execution by pleading their bellies, claiming pregnancy, which under British law delayed their punishment. What happened after is a mystery. Some records suggest Reed died of fever in prison, while Bonnie disappeared from historical facts entirely. While these women earned respect through their combat skills, our next infamous pirate gained from having a different skill. Charles Vane earned a reputation that made even hardened pirates uncomfortable. When fellow criminals think you've gone too far, that's a special kind of achievement. The pirate community had an unwritten line of acceptable behavior, and Vane not only crossed it, he pretended it didn't exist at all. His career began around 1716 in the pirate haven of New Providence in the Bahamas. Unlike others who were forced into piracy, Vane enthusiastically chose this life and quickly became known for his brutal treatment of captives. What set Vane apart was his complete disregard for the unofficial pirate code. Most pirates allowed captured crews to surrender peacefully and join them or be set free. Vane, however, often tortured prisoners for entertainment even when they cooperated. His idea of a warm welcome involved actual fire. His tactics were so sadistic that he managed to give an already violent profession an even worse reputation. The historical record contains disturbing accounts of Vane's treatment of prisoners. In one particularly horrific incident, he captured a merchant vessel and discovered its captain had spoken against pirates in the past. Rather than the usual quick execution, Vane subjected the man to hours of torture before finally ending his life. News of these acts spread quickly, making merchant crews more likely to fight to the death rather than risk capture by his forces. Despite his cruelty, Vane initially attracted a substantial following. At the height of his power, he commanded several ships with over 90 men under his authority. His flagship was heavily armed with 24 cannons, making it a formidable opponent for merchant vessels and smaller naval crafts. Vane specialized in lightning-fast raids. His strategy was simple and effective: attack quickly, take everything valuable, and escape before naval forces could respond. He preferred smaller, faster ships that could outrun larger warships. This approach allowed him to plunder dozens of vessels with minimal risk. He was basically running the 18th century version of smash and grab crimes, just with more cannons and significantly worse dental care. His social skills were equally impressive, by which we mean impressively terrible. Vane managed to antagonize not just the authorities, but also his fellow pirates. He was that guy who gets uninvited from group gatherings because nobody can stand him. In 1718, when the British government offered pardons to pirates who surrendered, many accepted. Not Vane. He responded by firing on a Royal Navy ship and fleeing. That same year, Vane's crew encountered a French warship. After assessing the situation, Vane decided the ship was too powerful to attack safely. This was actually a rare moment of sensible judgment, but his crew didn't see it that way. They voted to remove him as captain for cowardice, a serious charge in the pirate world. Getting fired from a pirate job required truly spectacular incompetence. Most employment endings in piracy involved much more permanent solutions. Demoted to ordinary crew member, Vane was later given a small sloop with a few loyal men. His luck continued its downward spiral when a hurricane wrecked his vessel on an uninhabited island in February 1719. For several months, he survived alone after his companions died or were rescued. When a passing ship finally spotted him, Vane must have thought his fortunes had changed. Unfortunately for him, the ship's captain recognized the infamous pirate and promptly arrested him. Vane was taken to Jamaica, tried for piracy, and hanged in Port Royal on March 29th, 1721. His body was displayed in chains as a warning to other pirates, a common practice that rarely seemed to discourage anyone. While Vane terrorized the seas through violence and cruelty, our next infamous sailor made history with a single massive heist. Henry Avery pulled off the most profitable heist in pirate history, a single raid worth over $100 million in today's money. Yet unlike other famous pirates, he wasn't particularly violent or cruel. He was simply extraordinarily lucky and smart enough to disappear completely afterward. Avery started his career legitimately as a naval officer, eventually becoming first mate on the merchant ship Charles II. While docked in Spain in 1694, the crew grew frustrated with delayed pay. Avery led a mutiny, renamed the ship Fancy, and sailed off to become wealthy the illegal way. Basically, this was history's most extreme response to a delayed paycheck. The newly minted pirate headed for the waters off Madagascar, where ships carrying treasure between India and Europe frequently passed. What made Avery unusual was his democratic approach to leadership. He allowed his crew to vote on major decisions and established a code that distributed loot fairly among all men. This was basically a floating pirate democracy where taxation meant taking 100% from unlucky merchant ships. In September 1695, Avery achieved pirate immortality. Working with several other pirate ships, he attacked a convoy of Indian vessels in the Red Sea, including the Ganges Sawai, the flagship of the Grand Mughal of India. This was no ordinary merchant vessel. It was an enormous treasure ship carrying pilgrims returning from Mecca, along with a fortune in gold, silver, and jewels. The battle was surprisingly short. Despite the Indian ship carrying numerous cannons and a complement of soldiers, many of its cannons misfired, damaging the ship itself. After a brief exchange, the Indian captain and many passengers fled below decks, allowing the pirates to board easily. The amount of treasure they discovered was staggering. Jewel-encrusted gold worth 600,000 pounds, over $100 million today. The haul was so vast that every ordinary crew member received 1,000 pounds, equivalent to about 16 years' wages for a sailor. Talk about a workplace bonus. What happened next is where Avery showed his genius. Rather than spending his newfound wealth openly, he hatched an escape plan. After dividing the loot, he sailed to the Bahamas, where he and his crew disguised themselves as ordinary merchants. He bribed the local governor and abandoned his ship, vanishing into history. The theft created an international incident. The Grand Mughal of India was so outraged that he threatened to attack English trading outposts in India. The English East India Company had to work desperately to repair relations. Meanwhile, the English government issued a massive 500-pound reward for Avery, the equivalent of several years' salary for most people. A worldwide manhunt ensued. Some of Avery's crew were eventually caught and hanged, but the captain himself was never found. Historical facts show that he likely made it back to England under an assumed identity, possibly with only a portion of his wealth after being cheated by dishonest merchants who helped him sell his jewels. The last credible accounts suggest he died in poverty, his riches long gone. Other stories claim he established a pirate kingdom in Madagascar, living as a king with his remaining fortune. Either way, he was history's most successful take-the-money-and-run artist. He didn't even need a getaway car, just a really fast ship. What makes Avery's story so remarkable is not just the scale of his success, but how completely he disappeared. No record exists of his capture or verified death. Even the world's most powerful nations couldn't track him down. While Avery might have escaped justice, our next infamous pirate took villainy to shocking new depths. Edward Lowe makes other pirates on our list seem almost gentlemanly by comparison. If the Golden Age of Piracy had a true psychopath, it was Lowe. His cruelty wasn't tactical or designed to build a fearsome reputation. He simply enjoyed causing suffering. Lowe's path to piracy began in 1721 when he was working on a logging ship. After a disagreement with his captain, he led a mutiny, seized a small boat, and began attacking fishing vessels off the coast of New England. Most people handle workplace disagreements with a strongly worded email or resignation letter. Lowe preferred the steal a boat and become a murderous pirate approach to conflict resolution. His early success allowed him to upgrade to a proper ship, and within months, he commanded a small fleet. Unlike most pirates who developed some code of conduct, Lowe operated with one simple rule: maximum violence. He tortured captives even when they surrendered immediately and cooperated fully. One of his favorite tortures involved tying a victim's hands with rope, threading the rope through a block and tackle, and hoisting them up the mast. He would then drop them suddenly, stopping just before they hit the deck. The violent jerking motion dislocated shoulders and broke bones. In perhaps his most infamous act, Lowe captured a Portuguese ship in 1723. The captain had swallowed a valuable gold diamond cross to hide it from the pirates. Upon discovering this, Lowe ordered the captain's lips sewn shut and sliced open his stomach to retrieve the cross. He then killed the entire crew by locking them in the ship's cabin and setting it on fire. Even more disturbing was his treatment of a ship's cook who tried to resist. Lowe cut off the man's ears, broiled them, and forced the cook to eat his own fried ears with salt and pepper. A cook on another captured vessel received similar treatment, with Lowe slicing off the man's lips and broiling them before his eyes. His random mood swings terrified even his own crew. Lowe might be jovial one moment and murderous the next without provocation. He frequently killed prisoners simply because he woke up in a bad mood or disliked their appearance. Lowe's reign of terror lasted only 2 years, but resulted in the capture of more than 100 ships, making him one of the most prolific pirates despite his brief career. His fleet at its height included 3 ships and approximately 180 men. The end of Lowe's story remains mysterious. Some accounts claim his own crew finally had enough of his instability and mutinied in 1724, setting him adrift in a small boat. Other reports suggest he was captured by the French and hanged. The most credible story indicates he continued piracy under different names until disappearing from historical documents entirely. While Lowe represented the darkest aspects of piracy, our final infamous buccaneer presents a fascinating contradiction. Captain Kidd stands out from our other pirates for one surprising reason. He might not have been a real pirate at all. In fact, he began his seafaring career as a pirate hunter hired by British authorities to combat the very criminals we've been discussing. The story begins in 1695 when Kidd received an official commission to hunt pirates in the Indian Ocean. He was given a warship called the Adventure Galley and sent off with the blessing of the British Crown. This is like hiring a security guard who then robs the building he's supposed to protect. What happened next remains debated by historians. Kidd claimed he only ever attacked legitimate enemy vessels or ships with proper documentation. Unfortunately for him, one of those ships, the Quedagh Merchant, turned out to belong to a powerful nobleman with connections to the East India Company, despite flying French colors. With this single capture, Kidd became branded a pirate himself. Meanwhile, political winds in England had shifted, and his former powerful backers abandoned him. When Kidd returned to New York in 1699, he learned he was now a wanted man. Here's where the treasure legends begin. Before surrendering to authorities, Kidd allegedly buried some of his plunder on Gardiner's Island near Long Island. This became the seed for countless buried treasure myths, though most of his documented treasure was actually found and cataloged when he was arrested. The recovered treasure included gold dust, gold bars, silver pieces, jewelry, and rare fabrics from the East Indies, all of which were used as evidence against him at trial. The total value was substantial, but nowhere near the mountains of wealth depicted in later fictional accounts. Kidd was transported to England in chains, tried for piracy and murder, and hanged in London on May 23, 1701. His execution didn't go smoothly. The rope broke on the first attempt, requiring a second drop to finish the job. Even in death, Kidd couldn't catch a break. His body was displayed in chains over the River Thames for 20 years as a warning to other sailors contemplating piracy. Meanwhile, the legend of his buried treasure grew far beyond reality. For centuries, treasure hunters have dug up islands from the Caribbean to Madagascar searching for Kidd's lost gold, spawning the entire buried pirate treasure genre of adventure stories. The cruel irony of Captain Kidd's story is that most evidence suggests he was more victim than villain, a privateer who got caught in political games beyond his control rather than a true pirate by choice. From reluctant pirates to legendary murderers, from female buccaneers to meticulous administrators, these 7 criminals shaped our understanding of the Golden Age of Piracy, proving that sometimes history's greatest villains make for its most fascinating stories.